We will call to order the regular school board meeting of the Madison Central School District on this Monday, June 11th, 2018. And Mr. Brooks will record the members present or absent. We have Mr. Farrell joining us via FaceTime and Mrs. Schultz as well. So we do have a quorum, and with that, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 5 is the approval of the agenda. I don't believe there's any changes, is that correct? No changes, okay. So I entertain a motion to approve the agenda as is. So moved by Mr. Farrell, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Second to Mrs. Schultz. And any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. All right, motion carried, and on to item number 6, which is the approval of consent agenda items 7 through 10. The approval of the minutes for the regular meeting on May 14th, as well as the special meeting on May 18th. The approval of the bills, which myself, Steve Nelson, and Leah Cecil went through. Did you guys see anything or have any questions on those? Okay.
Good order.
Personnel actions for number 9.
Request to hire Caitlin Ingbrecht as a summer custodial at $8.85 per hour. And then we have some contract changes for the 2018-19 school year. Darcy Bottom moved from a BA to a BA 15 at $42,280. Austin Kestelut, who's our new ag teacher, as middle school football 8th grade, he'll replace Jeff Hagee at $1,636. Devin Bruna as middle school boys basketball, he'll be 7th grade, replace Evan Finley at $1,718. Adam Erickson as an assistant track coach, replace Jeff Hagee, $2,990. Megan Yankee, we will remove middle school volleyball, which was at $1,636, and Jill Cradaville will remove assistant varsity track at $2,990.
And then item number 10 is the approval of open enrollment applications 19-1.
We have one open enrollment coming from Aberdeen. Actually, I think they plan on coming here all along, but the housing they bought is in the Wentworth area, so the open enrollment will be for 10th grade boy.
So I entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items 7 through 10.
So
So moved by Mr. Miller and seconded by Mr. Hunemichael. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carried, and we're on to item number 11, which is the hearing of delegations and written communications. Anyone here to address the board at this time? So seeing no one at this time, we'll move on to item number 12, which is the administrator report.
I'll just touch base on a couple of things. Congratulate the girls track team on their 6th place finish, and the girls golf team also on their 6th place finish at state. Currently, as of today, all of our certified teaching positions are filled. Hopefully it'll stay that way. I did go on the Associated School Board site today, and currently there were over 200 openings, teaching openings still in the state right now. Last year at this time, we were informed that our Makerspace Lab program had received the Little Red Schoolhouse Award from the South Dakota School Administrators of South Dakota, and as a result, Dr. Cook, Mrs. Kaloff, and Mrs. Yankee will be presenting on our Makerspace program at the SASD Leadership Conference in Deadwood later this week. So I will also be out there in attendance. So again, that was from the getting the Little Red Schoolhouse Award from the school administrators. They will now be presenting on what we do with our Makerspace program. Summer food program is off and running. One day when I checked last week, it was 104 meals were served. It's been right in that area, just a little under that, so it's off to a good start. And then I know it's 2 months away, but so you can put on your calendars, the ASBSD convention will be in Sioux Falls on August 9th and 10th. That's a Thursday and Friday for the annual Associated School Boards convention down in Sioux Falls, Thursday, August 9th and Friday, August 10th.
Do you have anything you would like, or are we gonna wait till your handbook?
But yeah, no, I sent one in, I don't know where it gets through.
You should have them, so.
It's my usual.
Okay. You have, got it. Anything else for the administrator reports? Item number 13 then, and we're right on time, is conduct a hearing to consider the proposed budget for the 2018-2019
I stole it from you,
year.
Steve. That's all right.
Oh, yeah.
We published in the paper our proposed budget. We saw, that's pretty small, isn't it? Last week, or last meeting. Control plus. Okay. Is that a little better? So what we show is we show prior year budget's the second line down, and then the proposed budget is the top line, and then the difference between the two, just kind of the header, so you can kind of see the net results. And then the column we have our general fund, so we're proposing a general fund budget of $8.1564 million, using $251,000 of fund balance. And then with the capital outlay, proposed budget of 1.878, adding 6.5 or 650,000 into fund balance, and that goes for the reduction of debt. And then the special education, a $1.9 million budget, using 50,000 of fund balance. And then in the pension fund, 224,000, and there's no more revenues, and that's we'll use about 220 of fund balance. And then the rest are relatively neutral. 427,000 for the bond redemption, 587,000 for the food service, driver's ed of 18,100, the health plan of 1.2 million, and then a total budget of 14.5. So that kind of shows our revenue side, and we'll go into this in more detail when we get to the sheets, but this is kind of the document that's our official budget and that we publish. And it shows on the expenditure side what's elementary, what's middle school, high school, all the different areas, which we'll go into a lot more detail with as we get into the hearing, but just kind of where the expenditures are. And then our expenditures match our revenues. And the difference is that fund balance use. So that is the summary of it. We'll go into, I kind of use my spreadsheet, so right away I think we'll start with the easy funds and work to the harder funds. This bottom right here, the 55, this is our health insurance fund. So we did an 18th month estimate because this last year's been very low. We didn't want to necessarily trend it off that last one. Where our insurance premiums, that's our reinsurance and our administration, and then where our claims would be, we use about 8% growth on that. So it comes to a $1.2 million estimated budget for our health insurance fund. In order to fund that, here's the revenue side. We would bring in about 1.2 million in premiums, and then we have our stop loss where if there's claims over a certain amount, our reinsurance kicks in and then pays us back for that. So we're estimating about 80, and then that's how the health insurance pool will get funded. And if you have any questions on any of this, I'll just kind of keep going through the funds one by one. Here's the next fund we'll look at is the driver's education fund. It's a smaller fund. We have a 2-year agreement, so salaries stay the same. Then their benefits, vehicle usage, and then just miscellaneous supplies. So it's 18,000 on the revenue side. And I have the prior years. This is then the year we're in now, and then the year prior. That's what those are. And on the revenue side for driver's ed, pretty much comes through student charges, and then we were behind on the fund balance. So in essence, it'll pay back the fund $400 each year until we catch up. Kind of our plan. So that's the driver's ed. The food service fund. We have some supervision salaries we pay from there. We have kind of the benefits. They're professional and technical. This is what we pay to our contracted food service company, and there's a few other smaller items in there, that's the lion's share. Repairs and maintenance supplies, computer equipment, software, our commodity credits we get, equipment purchases, and then our depreciation on the equipment we've purchased in the past. So that brings it to about $587,000. On the revenue side, where we get funds for to support it, we get some interest in our earned. We our sales to our students, sales to adults, a la carte sales, reimbursements, our federal reimbursement, our commodity credits, and that's at $587,000. We do have the same, or we're proposing the same rates as next year for this year. I said that right. But I do think we'll have some increased participation just based on what we're able to offer in the next year. Then our bond redemption fund, this is on the high school, paying from the high school that remodel we just did. Our principal payment is $305,000. Our interest payment is $121,000. There's the issuance costs for the bank transactions, and that's $427,000 is what we pay out to fund that. And this is the separate tax fund. We collect $422,000 in taxes, some prior year's taxes, and some interest and penalties, and that would fund our payment that we're going to make on that. Then the pension fund, we don't have any more SDRS payments because that ended a few years ago. We have our early retirement payments. I did bump that up a little bit just based on the utilization we had this year for it. And then where we fund that is pretty much out of fund balance. We don't get any more tax revenue from it, but we do get some prior year payments, and then there's penalties on that, and a little bit of interest earned. So that equals at $224,000. And then we'll go to the special education fund. So it's a little bit larger. Go to the top, sorry. So our first function in the special education fund is our mild to moderate. So in the mild to moderate, we have our teacher salaries, and then each group will be very similar, so I can go through the first and can look at the rest. But the teacher salaries, our temporary salaries, our aide salaries, the benefits associated with those, some fees and travel and postage and supplies and textbooks and instruction. That's just one component of our mild to moderate. Part of IDA, which is federal funds, covers the other portion. And so then it's all one whole, this whole thing is one IDA, but we have to break out our federal dollars separate. So we have $193,000 in teacher salaries, benefits, and then some indirect costs. So the total for mild to moderate is at $760,000. And then our next program is our severe. And our severe, our teaching salaries, temporary salaries, aide salaries, you can kind of see not a lot of differences between the years. Just some health insurance was a bit of an increase this year. You'll see that across the board. But there's the change in the severe. I'll try to get this all into one. We have our day programs. So these are students placed out of district that are just there for the day, not for overnight. And that's increased some, but you'll see that then our residentials have decreased. These are projected, so moves in or out, these can change quite significantly, but our estimated go up, our residential will go down. Part of our residential programs come from federal dollars, so the IDA picks up some of this. The shift is we have less residential, that's why it shifted up into the mild to moderate on that. Our early childhood program, you can just kind of see the salaries, temporary salaries, aid positions, benefits, travel, postage, supplies, pretty much the same as the others. And there is a little bit of federal dollars for our early childhood program in there. Our nursing services are projected to be the same. Psychology services, which we get through the QUAP, projected to be the same. Our speech therapy, slight increase just because of the negotiation changes on there. Physical therapy and occupational therapy, we just put a small increase in there. Typically the hospital have a small increase each year that they charge us. We haven't got those contracts yet, but we estimated an increase. Administrative costs, some of the costs come from the co-op within our district. And transportation costs. The big change here is we have less mileage we pay and more where we use our own vehicles and stuff. That's kind of the big change there. And then the total is at 1.963 million. And then how we fund that. So I can get all the fit kind of. Pretty close. The two in yellow is the state formula. The state has funding per category, and then the number of children having each category determines what we get. Our taxes get levied, and then the remainder the state comes up with. So those two are the state funding formula for special education. Then we'll get some prior year's taxes, some penalties, some interest. Medicaid in special education has went up this last year. It looks like it'll stay there, which is kind of nice. And it's down on the general fund side, but it's nice to see that that's increasing. We get two different forms of Medicaid. One of them we just get a little bit in, the other one we get a little bit more. Our federal dollars, the $250,000 is our IDA. The $15,000 is for private school, special ed, mild, moderate. Then we have some preschool costs. We have a little bit of birth to 3 in there, and then we use fund balance. And the reason we're able to use fund balance is the tax levy kind of shifts from year to year, and we took our tax levy down just a little bit this year and used about $50,000. That way we stay within the correct limits of where we should be holding the balance on that. So that's our special education fund. Any questions on anything on it? Go to the capital outlay next. So with the capital outlay fund, we'll have, oops, oh, I did that wrong, sorry guys. Items with, that start with a 1 are instructional, and then 2 is our support. So this will be like the elementary school building, their portion of capital outlay. There's their textbooks, curriculum, and instructional software, technology equipment, and then just general other equipment. And in that is like the phone system piece we were kind of talking about a little bit earlier in that. And then the middle school, shows their textbooks, software and curriculum, the technology equipment, and then the other equipment. So kind of, you'll see it follow suit through the buildings. The high school, their textbooks, instructional software, technology equipment, and equipment. The library, books, and media, it's the books, and it's all kinds of database media that are researchable for the students that we can pay to have access to. And then the technology, this is more of, not in the, it's a 2, so it's not in the classroom. That's the stuff that Steve and John do, all the backbone pieces. This $42,000 is that E-rate grant, and then you see the credit coming in for it on the other side. And then the software, this is all of our different things to administer the different softwares, supports, licenses, any of that type of stuff for all the softwares across the district. No construction this next year projected as of now. Upkeep, anything that we repair or replace comes out of this item. Anything that's new type of equipment, if we put in a new sidewalk, that would come out of there. Capitalized equipment is anything that over the 5,000 would come out of there. And then for pupil transportation, there's non-capitalized, this is kind of smaller items like bus cameras and things like that. Vehicles, like the large portion of this is that new bus that we purchased last year. The next payment will come out of here. Plus there's probably a car and a moderate size, maybe 11 passengers that'll term out during this next year.
What was that mentioned, or what?
So the large portion of this is like the school bus that we lease. They don't come out of there. Then we have a car and then a mid-sized or moderate size, like a 8 to 11 passenger vehicle. And then those two that we currently have will reach our mileage and will purchase new. So that's kind of what those are. And then our printing, this is our copier lease, our printer lease, and our postage machine lease. Kind of all combined there. The copier lease is a large portion of that. Our debt service, This is then on the capital outlay side. Our debt payment is 310 principal, 136 in interest, and issuance cost. So that'll be our high school portion. And when we talked about, well, I'll show that in a little bit. Then our slope loan, this is the interest-free loan that the state gave us, a 10-year loan to do a lot of our energy efficient remodels, like our geothermal, and things like that with the building. That was an interest-free loan. So our total debt service on capital is 672. The combined activities, this is co-curriculars. Out of this would be things like sound shelves, stage risers, things like that. I think that's the lion's share of what they were. And then the total capital aid fund is 1.878 million. And how we would fund that is our through the taxes. It's about 60,000 more than the prior year. Actually, it's exactly at 60,000. There's a prior year's taxes, interest, all the little pieces. The grant, this is the E-rate grant. No clean diesel bus grant available this year for us. Sell surplus items, and then this 650 puts into future debt early payment. And we've been setting 400 aside. If we can call this debt in 5 to 6 years, we save ourselves about $1 million in interest over that whole loan. So that's kind of why we've been setting aside to have that prepaid off. And that in essence then saves the taxpayers on that. Any questions before we go into the general fund? So in the general fund, the first function is our elementary function. So you can see they'll all be about the same type of thing. The state provides the codes, and then we just code things that way. So our regular salaries, our temporary salaries, our aid salaries, and temporary salaries are subs and long-term subs. The benefits associated with them, and then our registration fees, professional, technical, travel, telephone, and supplies. So you can see kind of change in elementary. One of the reasons those large changes, they had a small section come through where there was a staff member light, and now that they're back to full sections, that brought a staff member back in there for the 5th grade. We have Title II, which is federal dollars. This position, whichever grade is close to a split off, so if there's a section that could go 4 or 5 sections, or 3 or 4, then we use our Title II dollars to make it so it's a smaller class sizes. And that's what that's for. And so the total elementary is 1.8. And then the middle school. So middle school, you see the salaries, temporary salaries, professional, technical, travel. The reason the professional technical changed a bit, the NWEA testing, which we'll probably address here in a little bit, comes out of that line item. Supplies and that. There was also the change, the counseling position became a how was it that? Yeah, student advocate position. So then that shifts from here, and you'll see it coming out from the counseling area. That's the large change to the middle school. Oops. In the high school, kind of go through, you can kind of see the salaries, the changes on that. If you want me to slow down or go through anything, let me know. Vocational education, this is Perkins dollars. This is the state amount that the state allotted. Whether we get that amount or not, we don't know, but that's kind of what was allotted towards us. So that's kind of our plan on how we'd spend it. Title I program, it's in the elementary. The positions within there, the tutor position, their benefits, and then the professional technical. Then law enforcement, and this is our SRO contract with the city. And here's the counseling, and you can kind of see that change in the salary piece and benefits. And health insurance just projected to be up a little bit from the prior year. We have a contract with the hospital that does most of that. Some of it we do with the county health nurse. Title IV is new to us. We're using $9,400 to do our staff training and set up for our NWA testing. And Mrs. Tyler will go through that. And then the other portions come out from the professional technical. That's kind of our innovative dollars. Improvement instruction, this is Mrs. Tyler's section for staff development and curriculum. We have our library. You kind of see everything just kind of goes the same, where it goes salaries, benefits. These are databases that are more, where there's like more search engines versus other types of resources. So they fall in the general fund section, their side. Technology in schools, and this is our tech department, help desk department, and everything that goes along with that. Our Board of Education, this is your guys' area, and then our administrator and linebacker insurance policy falls in there. And our publications and different things like that. Election, this is the price if we held the election on our own, but we usually combine with the city, so it's often less than that. Our legal services kind of have a set amount, it fluctuates from year to year. We've been under that the last 3 years, so that's been fortunate. Our audit services, this is what the cost is to perform our audit for each calendar year, for each, not calendar, fiscal year. Graduation, it does vary, depending on, we try to buy things in bulk, but typically that's about what we spend. Superintendent's office, kind of see the assistant, the benefits, dues and fees. And then the principal's office, not a lot of changes in these other than through the negotiations. Principal's offices, kind of their changes in there. This is our payment to the co-op. It splits out part special ed, part general fund. This is the general fund side of that. Medicare claiming, there's two different Medicaid programs. One of them the state facilitates and then charges back on that, and that's what we charge each year for them running it. Fiscal services, this is a business office. Salary, bookkeeper, we have Diane and Marlis in there. Benefits, some of our printing and binding. That's the cost on there. Care and upkeep on grounds. So this is all our maintenance department. This is the manager's portion, then the custodial portion. And you kind of go through, you can see our electric bill, our water, sewer, natural gas, repairs and maintenance, supplies, and property insurance. Here's our transportation expenses. You can see the driver salaries, coordinator salaries, all the supplies, gas, all of that. The printing and duplicating, then this is the general fund side of all of our printers. It's the paper, repairs and maintenance on the machines, service contracts, things like that. Our newsletter we send out each year before school starts. Placement services, this is the ASBSD placement services. To be a member of that, these are resourced. These are our non-public school curriculum is something that we cover as a district for our non-public schools, and then our federal funds share. So this is the non-public school share of our Title II dollars. And here's our non-public share of the Title I dollars. We provide services to the private schools for that. The foundation office, it used to be we would pay the salary, then they would pay us their portion. The last 2 years they've paid it, and then we've paid our portion. That decreases by 5% each year. Unemployment, we've had very little unemployment, so I've kind of left that low. It happen too often. The next are the co-curricular. I'll go through them relatively quick. There wasn't much changes other than the little bit in salary pieces. We kind of see like football, $35,000. Middle school football, $9,500. High school basketball, $19,000. If you want me to slow down for anything, let me know. But middle school basketball, $6,700. High school wrestling, $18,000. Middle school wrestling, $2,600. High school girls basketball, $19,500. Middle school girls basketball, $6,700. High school gymnastics, $14,800. Middle school gymnastics, $1,900. Volleyball, $18,000. Middle school volleyball, $9,000. Cheerleaders, $8,000. Transportation for these. So this is our driver's time for all the co-curricular activities. One line I've gotten wrong almost every year since I've been here is this one. I kind of always underestimate how many activities we have go to state. We always have more than I think, which is a good thing. So I'm usually low on that one. And hopefully I'm low again. Activity director position and all the awards and supplies and medical supplies that go with that. A lot of the medical supplies we charge through here because it shares amongst all the sports. Track and field, 27,000 for high school, 8,000 for middle school. Golf, 9,500. Tennis, 8,100. Cross country, 9,700. Debate, 8,800. Decal, 9,000. Dramatics, 19,200. FBLA, 1,800. Elementary music, 3,700. High school, that's their instrumental, so that's 5th grade band. And then high school musical instrumental, 20,000. And they do have a portion of the capital outlay for their instruments that come out of the middle school and high school functions in there. Vocal music, 13,900. Student publications, 15,000. FFA, 4,000. FCCLA and Pro Start, 3,700. Homecoming, 600. Student Council, 5,200. National Honor Society, 1,500. Prom, 1,800. Then we have a contingency that we do contingency transfers if they're needed in a year for a total budget of 8.1 million. And here's how we fund it. So it's a little bit larger, but in orange, I'll go down a little bit, the other portion of orange, that's our taxes, and the other orange is our state aid. I don't think I can make them fit on the same one. So those two numbers together are the new formula, which is the per teacher, funded by the per teacher. So those 2,000 fund the formula. Then the other revenues we get outside the formula. The ones in yellow are the what they call the other revenues, which are equalizing over the next 1 year's already done, so it'll be 4 more years. So those we get those funds, but then they reduce it out of our state formula, so that does equalize across the state. So that's why I kind of highlighted those. But we have a $100,000 opt-out that it's 250 in place, but we asked for 100,000, and we have done that for the prior years. There's some mobile home taxes that come in. They codex the same line item, but I like to split them out because then keep our opt-out and our formula dollars is different. Prior year's taxes, that's our utility tax. Penalties and interest on the prior years, interest earned, admissions to all our different activities, activity ticket sales, instrument rentals, tournament and activity income. That's if we host a region. Rentals is if we're renting out our gym or any other facility. That's went up quite a bit in the last few years. Donations and grants, just kind of put a plug dollar in there, never know what it's going to be. The co-op, we charge them for our services. The admin claiming's been down a little bit for our Medicaid. Other local revenues, just miscellaneous stuff that we get in. County apportionment, we're just getting county fines. There's some federal lands that pay us in lieu of taxes, or state aid. Our state apportionment, this is kind of school and public lands when they rent out, then they distribute that equally amongst the formula. Our bank franchise tax, other state revenue, different grants, and teacher mentoring comes out of there. Our Title I federal dollars, which it's been difficult because it's been up, down, and back up, so it's kind of hard to plan for each year. Our Title II dollars is hit a bit of a decline. Title IV is a new to us this year. Our Carl Perkins, and then using 250,000 fund balance for a total of 8.156. So that is our budget to find out. Any thoughts on that? I mean, we didn't have tons of changes from the prior. I think salaries and benefits was our largest, and then just some shifting of positions.
I have a question.
Okay, yeah.
You were saying something about the non-public share in the general fund about your, whatever, it was like, your books.
Okay. So we're responsible for curriculum for non-public.
Yeah, yeah. And so you have non-public share of that. Is there a non-public share of your special ed fund?
Not really. We do provide special ed services to the private schools. That one doesn't separate because all children fall under, if they test for it, fall under that. So there's not a separate category for that.
Okay.
So
That
I
is-
guess special ed levy is for all children within the district. For the general fund levy is for those enrolled. Then we have our non-credit share. Yeah.
But you're gonna have to go back to. Yeah.
The spreadsheet or to?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's under that one, the other one.
The expenditure side,
Expenditure, yeah.
okay.
And that was your elementary employee retirement?
Okay, so under the elementary retirement,
It's like way up there. Okay,
This one?
so there's a huge, from 16, 17.
okay, yeah. The changes in that?
Yes,
So
that
then
one
what you'll
and-
see is, we used to take it out of our pension fund. But when the new formula made that shift and rolled all of those dollars into the general fund, and then we had to put in the salary, and that's why I gave a large salary boost. Let me get down to it real fast here. For the 24. Okay. So that's, these dollars used to reduce what the general fund paid
Okay.
out in SDRS. So that was where that shift was. So we used to have 100,000 that came from the pension fund. We partially funded SDRS and then early retirement. Now the pension fund was removed and
Mhm.
put into the general fund under the new formula.
Okay.
And so that's why that shift happened. Good notice. Any other thoughts on that? So that was our super exciting budget hearing. That's 32 minutes.
32 minutes.
A little longer than I thought it was gonna go. Sorry, guys.
Well, item number 14, do you have anything else, Mr. Joel?
No,
on
I
that?
can go to the next.
All right.
Oh,
item
can't
number
keep it?
15.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I thought.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry if I steal it back real fast. I'll just keep it for the next few. So then that leads into our setting the budget and property tax request, which is really the same thing, but this is our annual resolution that we move. It shows our dollar amounts for the, I'll do that with this. It shows our dollar amount for each budget, and then this is our levy that we would ask to fund the budget. So our general fund, and then these first two are set by the state. Agriculture is 1.512, owner occupied is 3.383. Non-agriculture commercial property is 7.001. Special education, these are ones that we can set, is 1.367, and we can go up to 1.567. A pension fund, we can no longer levy, but I like to leave that in there, just as a marker. Levy requests, we now have to request certain ones in dollars, so capital A fund, requesting 2.538. And what that is half of that calendar year, and half of this calendar year, is where we get our levy request for the school year. And our bond redemption fund of 420,000, or opt out of 100,000.
Do we have a levy on the special ed fund?
Yeah, that's
How
right,
does that work?
right there.
Why did they change the percent, why did they not go capital outlay fund in a percentage anymore?
I think if you set it in a mill and your valuations rose 15%, then you have a very large increase in capital outlay. This way, if you ask in dollars, you're asking, I guess you're just showing the dollars that you're asking.
So what, you don't know, I mean,
It doesn't, on our side, it doesn't really change all the month, because it was a cap of 3% plus growth. And so we haven't been ones that have grown as fast as everybody, as far as like ask as much as everybody
so what
else.
does that equate per percent, you know? Like,
I-
are we under the, we're obviously.
Oh, we're under the 3, yeah.
By
It would
how
be-
far?
Well, last year I think we were like 2.9 something. I mean, we don't know next year's valuations, so I didn't really want to get this year's valuations, but it'll be smaller than it was this year
Sure.
on that, as far as the mill, as whatever mill is put out there, but
And then if special ed fund, instead of doing, You know, like if you run short, then you increase that percentage.
Yeah,
Following
so,
year to
Um,
recover your costs.
yeah, in the following, if we needed to, yeah. We've been in the middle, in between the two minimum maximum levies. If we levy this, and something bad really happens, we can still go and start extra cost fund.
And what was the
If we did it 2 years in a row, we
max?
couldn't.
What was the max in the capital outlay fund, or the special ed fund levy?
1.567.
1.567?
Yeah.
1.3. And we're taking 1.3.
And 1.3 is what we'd be asking, yeah.
And last year we were at 2.9 on our capital outlay. We
It's
don't
right-
know what we are this year.
Right about, I can,
It
I have the levy in my office, we can look that up, but,
Okay.
yeah. I think it's always fun to see it in the levy request.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve the 2018-2019 budget and property tax request that Mitch has up there?
So moved.
All right, so moved by Mr. Nelson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Hanamichael. Any further questions or discussion?
I guess I'd just like to again thank Mitch for all of his hard work in preparation of all of that for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, budget is approved. Item number 15, again, is Mitch. It's consider approval and adoption of the supplemental budget for the 2017-2018.
So this is a supplemental budget for this year that we're currently in. What it is, the middle school received a couple grants. We got an innovative grant and what was remaining of the EPSCoR grant. And so what it would be is, we spent just about 10,500, just about 8,500 for each grant, and then we got reimbursement from the state of 10,500 and 8,500. So we're adding it to our budget so it shows. The other is our driver's ed curriculum was purchased this year, and there was grants and donations that covered that. So we adding that expenditure and then that grants and donations into our budget. So we have these recognized.
So is there a motion to approve and adopt the 2017-2018 supplemental budget changes?
So moved.
All right, so moved by Mrs. Cecil and seconded by Mrs. Schultz. Further questions or discussions? Okay, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passed. Item number 16 is Anna Tyler with our curriculum overview.
I'm so glad there's people like Mitch that handle the money end of it.
We are too.
I just hope yours is half as exciting.
You're right, it's half as exciting. I'm just going to talk to you about quite a few things actually, but the first one is, this year we had our social studies adoption. We adopted new textbooks in grades 6 through 12. We did not do K through 5 right now. They felt they had a phonics need, that they wanted to get some more, a little bit stronger phonics curriculum in the elementary. So 6, 7, and 8 adopted TCI, it's called. It's an online, it was a textbooks written by teachers for teachers. And it has a really good project-based component to it. They each got a classroom set of books along with this online component. 9 through 12 went with the Houghton Mifflin Harcourt product for their social studies. It has a partnership with the History Channel, so they really like that part of it. And they also have a good online component with their set of books. So that was adopted. One thing that we did though in K-5 as well as 6 through 12 is social studies was given an additional set of standards called the Osheti Sakawi, which is the 7 tribes of the Sioux, Indian, Native Americans, and they were quite rigorous standards that the social studies through the state, it was mandated. And what we did was we did a divide and conquer. Instead of every teacher doing all 7 essential standards, we had, like kindergarten took one of the standards. first grade took one of the standards, second grade took one of the standards, so that they could do justice to these standards, but yet not have to concentrate on all of them. And we did the same in middle school and high school. So we just kind of did we're staying true to the standards, but we're not having every teacher teach all these standards each year. The other thing for the elementary phonics, kindergarten went with a phonics program called VOAC, which uses the Orton-Gillingham method of seeing, hearing, a lot of physical movement with the phonics. First and second grade went with a program called Words Their Way. Both of these, kindergarten and first and second grade, are going to have training the end of July to help them out with these programs that the teachers are going to attend for that. And then I have some initial Smarter Balance results. I have on here that it's not confirmed. That just means these scores haven't been vetted yet. They came back to us, but they have to go through a process of the school districts actually looking at student scores and making sure that's where they're at. But what I've done here is given Madison's result in the first column and the state result in the second column. So you can see, for example, the English language arts is the first graph at the top, and third grade, 57% means 57% of the students in third grade were proficient or advanced on the Smarter Balance assessment. And at the state level, there were 50% of the students proficient or advanced. And you can go down and see fourth grade, we did quite well, 69% compared to the state's 49%. There were just a couple areas where the state was higher than us.
That includes all schools or just the schools our size?
It includes all schools in the state, except for BIA, Indian, Native
It does not
American.
include the Native American schools?
No.
Okay.
So 11th grade, we were lower than the state, and in math. I think there was one.
Diane,
7th grade.
can you hear me?
Yes, yes,
I can't see that, so I just have a couple questions on
sure.
the chart. How did the middle school and the high school do in the English, language arts, math, science categories?
Okay, the 6th grade, middle school, English language arts were 59% proficient and advanced, where the state was 49. The 7th grade was 56%, with the state being 53. The 8th grade was 62%, with the state being 53. And the 11th grade was 66% proficient and advanced, with the state being 64.
Okay.
And then in math, 6th grade was 43%, and the state was 42. 7th grade was 34%, the state was 45. 8th grade was 51%, the state was 44. And 11th grade was 28%, with the state being 40.
Ouch.
Yeah, math was lower than our ELA.
Hmm.
I also have at the bottom of that chart the actual report cards that the state puts out for all the districts in the state, all the schools in the state, isn't going to come out until the end of November, early December this year instead of in the fall. I'm not actually sure why. I think it has to do with the new ESSA rules that they were trying to accommodate everything. But they will look at our subgroups, and if any of our subgroups, which I've listed there, race, ethnicity, special education, 504 status, limited English proficiency status, which is a new one this year, low income status, if any of our groups scored in the lowest, I'm not sure what the percentage is, we're going to be put on a school in need of improvement and ask for get some help from the state level on some of those things. But I heard at one of the meetings I was at that if you're an A school, you're probably going to be put in improvement because you have an N size of over 10 on all of these subgroups. So I don't know. I think there'll be a lot of schools this year that will be surprised to be as designated as an improvement.
Yeah, we're hearing that at our meetings, 80 to 85% of the schools are going to be identified that way because of one subcategory.
Right.
Which, if you look at the subcategories, there's chances that's going to happen, and the B schools, of the B schools, won't have 10 kids in an area.
Right.
So it'll be interesting, I guess.
And we won't know that until the end of November or beginning of December.
So did I hear correctly that 11th math was 28?
Yes.
That seems to be a little low.
Yeah, and 11th grade ELA was 66.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I just wonder, we're going to look at that, or?
Yes, we will. I'm sure Adam will look at that with me. Yep.
And one thing in 11th grade, it's a little bit harder because there isn't as much incentive for the 11th graders to do well because of the ACT test that they're taking and so on, that sometimes aren't motivated, unfortunately.
Well,
We'll
and I
still
can
look
see
at
that with the low of 40 overall in the state, but we
Yeah.
still are falling well below that.
Yeah, we'll have to look at it. It's a one-time snapshot.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to bring, any other questions on that?
Do you know what week that was taken? That's
When
one?
was it? April?
Our middle school or high school?
the 11th grade and then the 7th grade.
Well, middle school was taken April 15th through 19th, something in there, right in there. But I will say the 7th grade test score, that's actually an increase.
From the math?
Huh?
In the math?
You know? That's a 1-point increase from last year. And a 1-point increase from 6th grade too, or from 5th grade.
Do we know when the 11th graders were tested? Like what time of year?
On that same time.
Same
don't
time.
know
I think
the
it
date.
was-
We have like, yeah, there's just a window between April 1st, say, and May 15th, something like that.
The other thing I wanted to talk to you about was we are starting a different type of assessment at Madison Central this next year. It's a formative instead of a summative. This is a summative assessment that happens at the end of the year to say, what have you learned this past year? We're going to give an assessment that's given 3 times a year, at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year, to say, what do you know and what don't you know, so that we can help you with what you don't know. The formative assessment is called NWEA. It stands for Northwest Educational, I'm not sure what the A is, association or something, but it's a research group that's been around for 40 years that really has taken these scores and looked at these scores across the country. So we are looking at not just South Dakota scores, but across the nation and how we do across the nation. It's taken 3 times a year in reading, math, and language, so it looks at the grammar aspect and the writing aspect. It's for instructional goals, and we're going to be trained on this during our in-service before school starts for those math teachers and reading teachers and language arts teachers. They set goals with the student. These aren't secrets to the student as to how they're doing, but we take these scores and say, this is what you're strong in, this is what you're weak in, this is what your goal might be to increase this weak area. And for the teachers to know even what standards that student is weaker on, to see if it's a building block for what they need to know. And on the back of your graph is an example of one of the, some of the information that teachers and students can get from this assessment, and parents. But you can see it gives a percentile, it gives suggested areas of focus, relative strengths, It has graphs that shows how the student is doing throughout the years and increasing on, in their areas. It uses something called a RIT score, which is really kind of hard to explain, but the score is the same whether you're a 3rd grader and you get a 210 or a 10th grader and you get a 210. It means you know the same amount. It means which is different than Smarter Balance. So I wanted to let you know that was something that we were going to begin next year.
And that will be in place of this?
Oh, we'd love it to be in place of this, but no, the
Maybe
Smarter
maybe
Balance comes
someday.
from the state.
Okay.
And that's something we have to do. This is something we're opting to do to help our
For the
students.
middle school, Sean, we do what's called STAR testing, and it's just a test, beginning, middle, and the end. This will replace that. This test is about 10 to 15 times more reliable and valid than the STAR test, so the information that we're gonna be able to get is gonna be far more pinpointed per student. And the teacher's gonna be able to use that data to really dial in on where kids are struggling and where they're doing well.
And it's not the test, it's what teachers do with the results
do
of
with
the
the data.
test, what they do with the data that we hope to
And
instill
the
in them.
feedback is right away.
Feedback is right away. Kids get the feedback right away with how they did and what they need, what they're.
This test is to help kids grow, not to achieve. And there's a big difference between those two things. And that test that we're talking about Smarter Balance, that's more of an achievement test. How did they achieve? There's some growth pieces in there, but it's a very difficult test to gain any information from. This information is relevant and reliable and on the nose, they say. So I'd say 70-some% of the districts in the state are using it.
They are.
Yeah.
And Nebraska is using it to replace their state testing even.
I think you're gonna see a push statewide if that take place as well.
Yeah, and I think that would be good.
Be very good.
So the elementary's doing dibbles right now?
This will replace DIVs.
Is that all right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because
Janelle,
Ms.
yeah.
Guzzi loves dibbles.
Guzzi is very supportive of this too.
Yes, she is?
Yeah.
All right.
Also this year, we're going to be studying, we'll get new curriculum in music and art, CTE and Spanish. It's kind of a special type of year that we're going to be looking at those areas for new curriculum. We're also going to be looking at the new ELA and math standards. We're not changing our curriculum, but we're starting to look at what those changes in the standards are. The state changes their standards pretty rapidly. It wasn't that long ago that we got our new standards, but we're going to look and see what those changes are this year. So any other questions that you have of me, that's what I have for you.
You said the new curriculum in music, art, Spanish. Is there
And
another one I missed?
CTE,
Okay.
yeah.
Does junior kindergarten follow what kindergarten is going to be doing? Or are they doing?
They kind of follow what kindergarten does. They don't have the same, I'm trying to think,
Just helping them prepare for kindergarten.
right, they prepare them for kindergarten, but it's not the same curriculum.
Okay.
It's not exactly the same. Other questions?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 17 on the agenda is to review the Madison Middle School handbook and changes.
Do you want to see the changes or the?
What do you guys have in your packets? There's a few. You guys go ahead and throw it
So I'm
up
gonna
there.
afraid of the changes.
Changes.
That is their packet.
That is it. Okay. Well, good. Let's see. Well, the first thing I just want to talk about, on page 6 of our handbook, we've always had an after-school detention piece in it. We've not done one since I've been here. I don't believe in them. I don't know that they're effective. So I'm just going to take it out. So that won't be, there won't be that piece in there any longer. If we discipline children in that fashion, we typically put them in a noon detention. So they have lunch with me, sit at a table for 15 minutes, and we move on with life, have little conversations. Most kids can regroup themselves in 5 to 10 minutes in most cases, and To me, that's, I control their time versus controlling a teacher's time or a parent's time after school. So typically, I just find after-school detention to be pretty aggressive, disciplined. And so that's just a piece I don't believe in, so we don't do it. Page 7, I'm adding a cell phone piece. This was something my staff asked for. There's two sides of a cell phone being used in the school district. I'm kind of always leaned on the side of using them. They're a tool. I mean, it's a $1,500, $800 computer in some kids' hands. And we're gonna try to get a little of that, but ultimately the teachers decide they want to try to police this a little bit more, and so I'm gonna support that. And we're gonna kind of run a same kind of a fence system that the high school has, so that we're gonna put that in there and have some more conversation with parents. And honestly, the biggest violator of the cell phone policy typically is the parent. I mean, they're typically texting them or calling them or leaving them a message, and the kid looks at it, and the next thing you know, it's out of their pocket, and they're getting taken away. So we'll deal with that. I don't think we're gonna see a great issue with it. We'll still allow them to use it at noon hours, so I just can't police 180 kids in one lunch, nor do I want to. So we'll allow them to use it at that point in time, and then we'll ask them to put it away as soon as we head back to classes. And I think our kids will, for the most part, will do just fine. It just doesn't come up much, but they just felt like it was time for us to do something different. So we're gonna add that piece.
Right now, they're currently allowed during lunch, and you don't have many issues with that. Yeah.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't know what they're watching. I kind of walk by and take a peek, But for the most part, they're playing games, which I hate because I want them to socialize. I want them to play and be active and communicate. But at the same time, I don't want to, if I see one, I'll be sending 20 people to the office every day at noon. And to me, that's, again, that just defeats the purpose when there's probably 98% of the kids sitting there having that conversation we want them to have. So I'd really love the parents to kind of help me with that piece, basic fulcrum rules, just learn what you learned in kindergarten, socialize, get along with one another, be fair, be polite, those kinds of things. So if we can get that done, there won't be a problem with the cell phones, I don't think. But we'll see. Hoping not. The last piece down there will be, you want to scroll that up for me? Is that as you guys know, we did not replace Mrs. Downs with a certified counselor. We replaced her with Mrs. Shamber, who will be coming out of 7th grade science, and we are going to call her our student advocate. Now, she will do some guidance lessons, so she's going to be still going to the 5th grade, working with the 5th graders. She's still going to pull small groups in together, but I'm looking forward to having a little different perspective with her working with more at-risk kids, and working as more of a liaison between the teacher and the kid and the parent. And really catching those kids as soon as they walk in that building, engaging them, trying to find ways to make them feel more comfortable, feel more connected, and feel like they belong, and find those things that make them want to learn and want to be re-engaged with education, but also getting those families maybe re-engaged as well with what's going on at the school. So that's what I'm looking forward for her to do. She's excited about the opportunity, and I think she's just going to do a great job of helping our kids when they walk in that door get engaged and feel like this is somewhere they belong. I truly believe if we want to stop the things that are going on in our society, I told this to our 3 congressmen when I was in DC this year, we start here. Not with more guns in school. We start here with opportunities for people to work with kids in a closer means, and get to know them, and get them engaged with their parents and in our community in some fashion. I think that's what will stop it. And that's what I'm hoping this job will do, what this person will do. So any questions about that? Because that is a definite change.
On the online here, it says cut after approval behind student advocate and guidance.
We're at now? I'm sorry, Sean.
It's on here, it's not on that sheet. If you look at this, Pat.
Yeah.
On right here.
Oh. Let me see if I got it in my red notes.
Backed it up.
Are you on the actual handbook, Sean?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, that's just me. Go back and clean all that up. That's just a note to myself on my hand. I have to go clean up
Once we've
when
approved
you've
it,
approved
then
it.
you'll
Yeah,
get that.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. That's good. Okay, so then just all I did with telephones is just really add a section in there. I noticed, that was kind of floating around our list, principals listserv this year. Same concept, it's coming back to that cell phone. You know, we're getting parents calling their kids at school or texting them saying, you got a doctor's appointment, or the kid saying, I'm sick, and he texts the parent says, well, just come out front and I'll be there. And they walk out the door and they don't check out, they don't do those kind of things, and then we're looking for the kid. And that's a serious safety issue. And so I'm gonna really encourage our parents, again, use our school phone. We will get a message to your child. If it's an emergency, we'll get them out of the building immediately. If it's not, we'll get it to them at the bell, just like we do with every kid. But we need to really encourage our parents to use that office phone, and the kids to use the office phone rather than their cell phones. I can tell you that there's been situations this year where a child's been sent to my office for whether it be an office referral or for not feeling well, and the parent knew. I was getting a phone call from that parent before the kid got to my office. And that's just unfair to everybody. So we want to make sure that we're, I think, trying to solve that problem.
And you're just gonna make them aware of it?
Yeah.
Via the handbook, or you're gonna give them
Well-
like handouts and keep reassuring them? Because honestly, it's just a
You don't read the handbook?
mistake. It's like a simple mistake, you know,
Yeah.
you're just out working.
Yeah, there'll be no consequence to it. You know, I mean, it's just like I do now, whenever that happens, I'll just say, hey, please call me first, or hey, just use this. To the kid, I'll say, just call your mom from the phone here, this is what I need you to do, so we all know what's going on, Tanya and I know what's going on. And it's just a constant reminder, and I'll make sure that's part of my parent meeting as well, and I'll probably send an email out on these changes with the cell phone, obviously, we'll be going out to parents to remind them, or to let them know of the new rules.
It's kind of new, the kids are the first time with the phone, parents are probably the first time with the kids with the phone, so.
Well,
We're sorry.
In my defense, my kids don't answer their phone when I call them after school.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was gonna do it during social studies.
well, the other issue is creeping in slowly are these things. And, you know, the other day, I was at my grandson's, and he's gonna be a third grader, and he's with his buddy, and I hear some voices, and I'm, who's talking? I can't figure it out. They're just over there, just standing there. Well, this little boy's talking to his mother on his smartphone. He could dial 10 numbers on that, so he's having this conversation completely, and I'm trying to figure out who's talking to who. So this is something I know that's invading Janelle's space already, and I'm sure it's gonna start becoming, you know, we're already asking to take this, we had to have them this year during the smart balance, to take all their smartwatches off and put them on the table along with their phones. This is all just a new strategy, and this new thing coming our way all the time. So, very good, very cool, I think that's the point, but we've also got some issues. Any questions, guys, about the middle school handbook?
So is there a motion to approve the changes to the Madison Middle School handbook?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Miller, is there a second?
I don't think that, is that a second?
Was that a second, Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
All right, second by Mr. Farrell. Any further questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll signify by saying, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay? Okay, motion passed.
Thank you.
Item number 18 is the second reading of new policy JDG, restraint and seclusion.
We had this policy last month we looked at, still not liking the 4-page policy that well, but Mrs. Kingsley's looked at it, and has a comfort level. Our concern is that with it being 4 pages, trying to follow everything that's in here. I know the same conversation is going on in a number of different schools right now, but state law requires that we have one in place by July 1. So we'll have this one adopted in place, but then don't be shocked if come July or probably August, if we don't come back and tweak some things or try to condense it a little bit in some way, shape, or form. You know, state law has 3 sections to it, and this was drawn up by the Associated School Boards, which I'm sure they've tried to cover every little thing, but it makes it so it's a policy that's pretty hard to follow maybe because of the fact it's so long. So I don't like bringing forward a policy that I'm not 100% behind right now. But we have to have something in place. We won't have to, we don't have school going on right now, but the law was by July 1. I know a lot of schools are doing the same thing and are going to be looking at it over the next 2-3 months as we get into the year.
Do you foresee the additional changes coming from ASDSD, or do they have this out there, and then if anyone else wants to revise it?
I think it's going to probably come from a different source, from a different, I know different schools right now are having their attorneys look at it themselves, their school attorneys. Not every school's doing that because it'd be redundant, but we're pretty good about sharing things once we have some things out there that we could use. So it's a good policy. There's nothing wrong with this policy written up. It covers everything. I mean, it's in here. It's just a matter of, it's sort of a hard policy to follow because of the length of it. And that's the concern, is that we're setting ourselves up for an issue because how do we remember 4 pages of a policy?
The bill we passed was only 1 page, double spaced.
Yep, three paragraphs, and that's what a lot of them are looking at doing, is going to maybe condense it down to that and referencing the state law. More so than, and again, Mr. Kaufman, I like Mr. Kaufman, ASB, but I've never seen him write a policy that isn't 4 to 6 pages, so. And again, nice guy, I'm not being negative, I'm sure everything's covered, but I think we can hopefully come up with something that's a bit more condensed and maybe easier to follow from a staff's point of view and being able to follow the policy better. But again, without having something better to put forward, we need to have something in place. That's why we brought this without changes right now, but again, don't be shocked come July and August if we're not addressing the same one again.
So is there a motion to accept the new policy, JGB, restraint and seclusion?
So,
So moved by Mr. Nelson. Is there a second?
no second.
Second by Mr. Michael. Okay, how about any further questions or discussion?
Joel,
Yep.
I have a question, and this isn't or nothing that needs to be added to the policy, but I'm just curious under section 8, when it talks about training and professional development, it talks about that the district will ensure that an appropriate number of people will be trained in crisis management.
Yep.
How are you going to come up with an appropriate number? And
Well, we've actually done training already, and actually Amanda Pavon is a trained trainer, so she actually trains those in some of the surrounding schools in our co-op, and we've had a number of other staff that have taken that as well. And that's a yearly type thing, trained, and then when staffing changes, we'll have to have new staff trained, but the advantage we would have is that Mrs. Pavon is a trained trainer, so she can actually provide that, because she went through extensive training a year ago. PCM.
Yeah, there was, 8 or 9 of us.
Yeah,
That went through 2 full days of training, and we had to pass an exam, and, in order to put a standing type,
restraint. Yeah.
restraint on a child. So she'll do a few more. We have to go through another training in August again for a full
Yep.
day again, just to re-credit. And so it was amazing training.
Yeah.
It was
We actually
very-
got ahead of it because some of this we knew was coming, so we had done some of this the year prior. And, but it'll be an ongoing yearly training, I'm sure.
do you look at training all the staff?
It's not all the staff, it's the staff in those areas mainly, but eventually it could end up getting to that point.
And then was that something all the building principals went to then?
Let's see, I don't remember. I think maybe I was the only building principal
You're the
then.
building principal
And then
right
it was,
now.
I think you're more looking at teachers that are going to be your leaders who are gonna maybe have to step into a situation when
Yep.
there is not a building leader in the area. So you're gonna be looking for those kinds of people. So that's what we started with first. I forget, Mike Ricky's trained, so we have somebody at the
Yep.
high school now, and there was elementary people that are trained. So you have, all 3 buildings are trained with someone. I have Betsy Chamber as well in our building. So I have 2, and then Howard came, and I forget at the elementary who they were now. It's been a while.
I want to say we have about 4 or 5 in every
Yeah,
building right now.
yeah.
But it'll be ongoing.
Yeah, law of averages or
Yeah,
probably will happen when those people are at the other end of the building.
could very well.
Does that correlate with like our Officer Gant's training? Is he, does it overlap? Or is it different?
Well, he probably has a whole lot more
Yeah.
leeway than I ever have, you know, obviously.
But
I'm not a huge fan of ever touching them, so to
Yeah.
me, it's just, I get out of the way unless I absolutely have to. To me, if they bust up a room, they bust up a room.
These are all for
Get the other
extreme,
kids safe.
extreme case
Yeah,
situations.
yeah. So,
once again, it's up to date
yeah.
on what.
Yeah, and they would have, they'd have a different set of rules they would have to follow, but they've been trained on it, yeah.
But they're trained, I mean, they are aware of what our policies are. You know that.
Yeah.
and all the other teachers, at least, I think all the principals tell their teachers very clearly, just as I do, you never touch the kid. You never get involved unless you've been trained. You stay
Yeah.
away. But we've already got radios, we've got GAN coming, we have somebody coming to help with that situation, because they're only opening themselves up to an issue, so our teachers pretty well understand that piece.
All right, we've got a motion and a second, so all in favor of accepting the new policy JGB restraint seclusion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. All right, motion's passed. Item number 19 is consider approval of agreement with the South Dakota Department of Health and the county health nurse.
And this is a yearly agreement, same number of hours.
I'm muted, so.
Maybe you're not.
Actually, you're not muted.
It's the same number of hours, 45 hours a year for services, $30 per hour, so it's $1,350. It's with our, with the state, with the different screenings and stuff that we do, so no change from last year, but it's a yearly contract.
All right. So is there a motion to approve the agreement with the South Dakota Department of Health?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Hanmichael. Is there a second? Second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cecil. Further questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passed. Item number 20 is consider approval of quotes for fuel purchases for the 2018-19 year.
And normally we have this linked to the agenda, but with the posting of the agenda early this week with staff being out, the bids came in after. But we received two bidders, Coast Petroleum and F&M Co-op. We bid 4 different types of fuel, number 1 diesel, number 2 diesel, ethanol, and unleaded gas. Coast Petroleum came in low on all 4 cases. They're number 1. We bid a margin where there's a bid done daily in Sioux Falls, and they bid their margin on top of that. And so like their margin is 3.95 cents, whatever the daily bid in Sioux Falls was, the margin to deliver is added on top of that. That seems to work out very well for our district. Pretty good pricing, so our recommendation would be go with Coast Petroleum, accept their bid for fuel for this next year.
They had it last year too, didn't they?
Yeah.
All right, is there a motion to approve fuel purchases for 2018-19 with the recommended Coast Petroleum? So moved by Mr. Hanamichael. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mrs. Cecil. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, motion passed. Item number 21 is consider the ICS consulting proposal.
I've been talking with ICS Consulting, that's Mike Hubbard. They'll do demographics, projections for schools. They've been in Minnesota for years. They're in Iowa, they're in South Dakota now. I talked to a couple of schools that they've done this for in South Dakota, Groton and Lee Deadwood. And when I talked to both Dan and Joe and asked, what would you say about them? Their first response was, we wouldn't do anything without going to them first again because of the projections they got and where they're at. So it's a 10-year, they'll do a 10-year enrollment projection. They'll take into consideration a number of different things that are going on in the community, whether it's the business climate. In our case, we have DSU growing and different things going on there. Last year, we thought we were going to have a section of 4 sections of kindergarten with 85 kids. We had 110 show up. Right now, we have 85 signed up, but we had that same number a year ago, so we don't know if I have 110. So was that just a one-year situation or not? They'll take into consideration of the different businesses and the additional jobs that may be coming to the community. They'll take into consideration housing. They'll look at a lot of different things. We're going to talk to a lot of different people. But the end result, and then I had information from them on schools they've done in Minnesota on their 10-year projections. And in most all those cases, with the exception of a couple, they were within 1% or so of what actually happened. And if it wasn't quite that way, one way or another, it was because there was a big economic change that took place in that community that wasn't foreseen. But we talked about our facilities, and are we going to have room in our elementary and different parts of our buildings? I don't know, without having some projections to start with, that we can base a whole lot without at least getting some additional information. They would have that back to us in roughly 4 to 6 weeks, once we would enter into it. $1,750 to get the demographic study going. In Lee Deadwood's case, they had additional work on theirs because of the fact of their district and how they're spread out, where the different population areas are at. They had some other mapping done. We wouldn't have any need for that. But I just think if we want to start making our mid-range and long-range goals on where we need to be at, facility-wise, are we going to be fine? Or are we going to keep seeing growth coming? We better start planning for it. So I just think this is the foundation on getting some initial information on what we think is going to happen with our enrollment. So, questions?
Is Lee Deadwood similar to our size?
They're a little bit smaller. And it's interesting because like in theirs, they're projected that they're going to keep declining. But you know, a lot of things have changed out in that area too with the mining and so on. Groton, their projection was pretty stable. Now there's some that we saw from Minnesota and stuff in different schools where, because of the things that are going on economically in those communities, they're seeing growth and they're projecting growth too. So, but we have a lot of factors, I think, like I say, that will have to be looked into with, again, DSU, the expansion, Mad Lab, and different things going on in our businesses. And, I just think we have to start somewhere, at least to try and get some information. Is it 100%? Can they tell us it'll be 100% accurate? No. They're going to take the best calculated projections they can give us. And they'll take the birth rates in the county, and they've got about 20 or 30 different things they'll use to base it on.
Is there a waiting period for them to get here, or can they get it on it right away?
Once we contact them, it'll get started shortly after that, yep. So it's not like we contact them and they can start this in November. And talking with Mike, in fact, I'll see Mike, I'm guessing he'll be out at the leadership conference as well. He's usually one of the vendors out there that once they know that we have an agreement, they will get going on it shortly.
Move to approve.
All right, so that was a motion by Mr. Nelson and a second by Mr. Hanamichael to proceed with the ICS consulting proposal. Is there any further questions or discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passed. Item number 22 is consider recommendation for food service rates for the 2018-2019 school year.
So when we went out for a proposal and we looked at that last month, they proposed to us the same rates that we currently have. With that, we were able to hold our rates to the same thing without any increase. There's a PLE tool. I forget what PLE even stands for, but it's an equity tool that recommends us go up 10 cents each year, but with our wages being, or with our what we pay out being the same, we're able to hold ours level. So our recommendation would be, and this kind of shows, this is what parents kind of see as they can project out the year, but our breakfast price is $1.60 and we leave it $1.60. That's why I borrowed Diana's and to work. And then our full price is $2.70, we leave it $2.70. And then the only change we really had, if you could scroll just a little bit, our extra entrees used to be $1.70 for lunch and $1.35 for breakfast. We propose to bring those down to $1, so if you go up for an extra entree for both, it'd just be $1. And part of that is when we did our bid proposal, we let them know we want to take that down, and then they tightened up their margin a little bit on that. So then that kind of works out well for us and for them. It should work out well for our families also. And then with the adult lunch, the current rate allowed by state is $3.55. If the commodity prices shift, that would go up, so we just propose $3.55 or the state minimum allowed. That way, if it does shift, you don't have to bring it back for approval, we just move it to what that state minimum is. So our recommendation is to leave most all rates the same, except for the seconds.
Seconds go in.
Move to approve.
Approved by Mr. Nelson, is there a second? Second by Mr. Miller. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passed. Item number 23 is consider moving the July 9th board meeting to July 12th.
And the reason we're asking this is with the fourth falling on a Wednesday. Typically, our custodial staff will do the administrative offices, shampooing, all that, right around the 4th of July. They would like to do the 5th and 6th. With that, it'd be very difficult for us to get the packets and everything together. So this gives us a couple extra days. We could probably get it out by then Tuesday for the Thursday meeting. And that's if it works for the board. If it doesn't, we can maybe have them shift which days they do the offices. And
So this would be Thursday, July 12th.
So moved.
does that work out?
I'm out that whole week, so I will not be able to make it to either of those
Either of
dates.
them? Okay.
Okay, so there's a motion by Mr. Miller to move the July board meeting from Monday, July 9th to Thursday, July 12th. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Mr. Farrell, okay? Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passed.
We appreciate that.
All right, item number 24 is the adjournment of our regular meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved by Mrs. Cecil, is there a second? Second by Mr. Hanamichael. Any further questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed, nay. Meeting adjourned.